I would like to thank you for the invite to be able to speak to such a great audience in Japan and everywhere else. And my topic covering your interest and your questions for this industry today is the future of B2B events, which I believe is right now. So I try to figure out, from the organizer perspective, but also from the perspective of companies and brands who are involved into conferences and trade shows, what is the future of these kinds of events and how will it change? Because it is quite obvious that we increasingly spend our lives online, and companies, brands, they are already in the process of reimagining all facets of their digital ecosystem, whether it's from sales and transaction processing to marketing and consumer service. And because much of consumer decision-making now happens online, as we all know. So the last several weeks have certainly pushed us to change how and where we work. And therefore, as we adapt to this current situation, this crisis, we are altering our fundamental habits and switching from face-to-face interactions to online connections. We are working remotely and conducting virtual meetings with colleagues and with business partners. And this shift in behavior requires us, all of us, to adapt digital technologies far more than in the past, such as collaboration tools, cloud storage, and video conferencing, powered by all these famous companies, Google, Microsoft, Dropbox, Zoom, and so on. We all know these platforms. So even when we recover from the disruption caused by COVID-19, we are unlikely that we return to the old ways of doing business. I think that's something we can all agree on. And we will have evolved to a new definition of work, one that includes more digitally enabled decision-making. So interacting in person is definitely changing. And how we meet in person in general will go through a dramatic transformation after months of major corporate events being canceled or reimagined due to the health crisis. My question is, will organizers and companies go back to the traditional model of hosting and participating conferences with tens of thousands of people? I don't think so. I do not believe that this will be the case anymore. And I believe instead companies will exercise an abundance of caution to protect the well-being of their stakeholders, of team members, of their visitors, and of course, as well as their financial investments. And they will continue to move from in-person social gatherings, big events, to more digital first event experiences. So I think this trend is already set, and we can already see this. And therefore, large in-person conferences made sense in the past, but not in the future anymore, not as it was, because our mindset is already changing. Everybody's mindset is changing. And moving forward, we will feel more comfortable interacting and making decisions online without having to fly to a faraway city or gather in a conference hall with 10,000 people. And so digital event experiences or virtual event platforms, this is not completely new yet. I mean, companies like ON24, for example, have been around for 20 years, who provides conferencing technology. And early obstacles like, for example, spotty bandwidth availability will dissipate as 5G becomes more widely adopted and the connectivity is, of course, far better than in previous years. So the opportunity to save time and money from viewing keynotes online at times most convenient for the users will outweigh the desire to see speakers in person. So the streaming world has taught us that appointment viewing, where you have to be in front of a screen at a dedicated time, this is not a priority like it was in the past. So this already changed. And as a consequence, digital events are not short on opportunities to share ideas, communicate, or socialize with each other. So in fact, they can provide creative new ways to interact as more of us integrate and rely on social networking within our business lives. So for example, companies can use interactive segmentation criteria to create different types of experiences for specific audiences. They can also draw on detailed profile information about me as an individual attendee, prior content consumption, and shared participant objectives to empower any virtual attendee to be more productive during a digital event than they would be at a physical event. So companies are no longer limited to just a one-time event, which happens, at a dedicated time somewhere in the world, but they can combine a wide range of activities into a more, I would say, holistic digital experience. So that said, in-person events are not going to disappear overnight. That's also quite obvious, but they are already changing, and hosting events or attending major industry functions will continue to be important for sharing insights, for driving lead generation, promoting industry thought leadership, and of course, connecting with our peers and customers. But all of us, we have less time available, and we have more to focus on where we go and where we spend our time. So therefore, this will be far more important if we go out to an event. It has to be exactly the perfect and the right event where I get the most benefit out of it. So, however, companies should invest into digital platforms that can stand alone and provide opportunities to integrate with live events. It's not necessary that you need to have a live event already in place and then can start with digital activities. So it's not a choice between online and offline. It's a matter of creating solutions that best support the customer decision journey, regardless of the situations we may face in the future. And of course, there will be other events happening, unfortunately, which will influence this kind of business. So as a consequence, I have worked with brands and participants now for some time to identify their expectations for future digital event experiences. And if you're happy with, I'm sharing a few key learnings and takeaways out of this. And the first one is keynotes don't have to be live. So unless a speech contains breaking news, you don't have to, you don't have to broadcast it in a real time at a dedicated time. So streaming is just, a few minutes later, it can prevent technical issues and can ensure a more pleasant streaming experience. This is quite sure. Second, the content. I think this is quite important. The content must align with purpose. And the digital platform created should be used to share fresh, valuable content that reinforces the purpose behind the event. Make the same content available in various digestible formats that appeal to different learning styles, such as presentations, articles, infographics, videos, and polls, for example. So this can all happen at real time while you're doing the speech or while you're organizing such a conference. The third learning is that participation is easy and empowering. That's quite important, I think. So digital events provide more opportunities for attendees to interact with speakers, giving them a voice to communicate their ideas and perspectives. At offline events, the audience may only be able to ask a few questions, as we all know, at the end of a session, everybody wants to do it, but there's only time, a minute or 2 minutes to ask questions. The digital event experiences instead enable an aggregation of multiple real-time questions during the presentation, which can be then voted up or down by the event organizers or attendees for the speaker to answer. So creating a lively dialogue is quite important. A next key takeaway is that people want to participate on their schedule, on their own schedule. So for digital events, that means attendees don't care much for an agenda and will not give their full attention to a screen for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours. They want to watch and interact with the content on their terms, not to be forced into a brand schedule. And I would like to, I would break a digital event into a short manageable segment. I would divide it into different topics so that attendees can opt in whenever they want and what interests them most. So, and the last point out of this, conversations and the key learnings out of my meetings with the people and the companies is that the traditional concept of networking at a conference by handing out business cards needs an update. That's quite obvious. So this is out of time now. Enable broader online profile integration from social platforms like, for example, LinkedIn, which is a great business platform, so that digital event attendees can choose who they want to connect with and start more relevant conversations. So while recent event cancellations have left many of us reeling, we have immediate access to alternatives, which we should use now. And there's no doubt that offline events will continue to exist, but as audiences recover from the current crisis around the world, they will evolve to be more digitally mature. Their preferences for attending digital events over in-person events will be far stronger. And organizers, as well as partner brands or sponsor brands, must be ready for this shift in preference and in their behavior. And I can foresee the following key trends for conferences, especially for conferences. While I see trade shows in a difficult position, trade shows, they will still struggle with immediate implementation of digital alternatives for visitors' live experience on site, being on a trade show. There, I don't see, immediate solutions to do such a thing, but conferences are in a far more comfortable position. And I would say, also learning from your title, I think it's fair to say that conferences pivot to streaming channels now, and that we also have to look into this more as having our own little Netflix channel, for example. So since late February, dozens of trade shows, conferences, summits have been canceled, as we all know, whether it's a Mobile Congress, Cannes Lions, South by Southwest, and many, many more. And some event organizers, they simply pulled the plug altogether, while others hastily tried to line up live streams for their registered audience, not to lose them. And there is no end in sight for social distancing that will be in place for a long, long time. And some of the event organizers, as well as companies, are now looking to launch their own micro-targeted streaming service for industry insiders or their client base. Services that could remain up and running also after current restrictions are relaxed or lifted. And that's the beauty of this. It's not just an interim solution, it will be a long-term solution. So the background is that everyone is online and streaming. And I've already seen a few digital events with a mixture of live streamed appointment viewing, pre-produced videos slotted into a kind of TV-like schedule, and on-demand content. And I think this is key. There are programming grid, like the one used by popular streaming service Pluto TV, for example. And viewers will get to see on-air graphics and interactive elements while people speak. And one of these companies I want to highlight here is Brightcove. It's a video platform provider who is not just powering streaming for event organizers, but they also turned their own annual Play conference into a streaming service. So Play conference was scheduled to be held in Boston last month in May, but Brightcove's, especially the Asia Pacific team from Brightcove, early on told the company management that the plan might have to shift and to change because of the current crisis. So, and what they did is that they had long planned to launch an app for smart TVs and mobile devices to accompany the Play conference, but then they quickly shifted gears to make that app the centerpiece of its strategy. And that's now really interesting. So Play TV, as the new service is being called now, will launch these days, so the next couple of days, and it will include live streamed appearances from celebrities like journalists or actors, for example. as well as on-demand content, and a TV like Grid with pre-programmed 24/7 channels. In other words, it looks more like having their own Netflix or their Disney Plus channel. And to prepare for the launch of Play TV, the Breitkopf events, the Breitkopf events teams, they also had to rethink its content strategy because it's a different approach. Content strategy such as more focusing on shorter programming, for example, instead of having these 30 minutes, 45 minutes discussions. After all, the viewers at home may not have the same attention span as a captive audience in a hotel ballroom, and that's quite difficult already. So that's a key learning for all of us. And on the upside, turning Play, the conference, into a streaming service potentially allows companies to reach a much broader audience. Last year, this conference, which I could attend, had around, let's say, 800 attendees, roughly. And this time around, with these activities now, I think many more may tune in, including team members who usually don't get to travel, or international audiences for which the event had always been out of reach. So, and while Play TV has been publicly announced for June, Breitkopf is already putting together plans for July and August programming, and will launch also a Japanese version for the audience over there later this year. So they're also focusing into different regions. So to summarize somehow, a transition to streaming may not work for every event organizer, that's also for sure. And also sponsors may, for instance, be a bit reluctant to pay premium fee if they cannot reach the key decision makers in person, which was, the normal way to do in the past. Or event ticket revenues may not be easily replaced or replaceable. But at the same time, it's becoming increasingly clear that conferences won't be returned to normal anytime soon. I mean, let's face it, Mark Zuckerberg said that Facebook won't host any events with 50 people or more till June next year, which is in 12 months' time. Microsoft announced that it won't be having in-person conferences at all until July next year. So they also said, whether it's Amazon and Google, they won't send their executives around the world again to put them into risk and just to have a speech, whether it's in Tokyo, in Berlin, or in Australia. This won't happen. And some in the tech industry, they are already predicting that the CES in January will be canceled as well. So it's not over yet. And many companies acknowledged me that they wouldn't send their own team members to in-person events right now. Also, if you are somehow involved as a sponsor, I don't anybody who would send their people to this event. That needs the involvement and integration of sponsor partners and brands into such a digital event needs to be redefined, and there are great opportunities. But until there is a vaccine that works, it is going to be really hard, if not impossible, to get 10,000 people or more together into a space. So with that in mind, many conference organizers are currently looking for a plan B, even while officially keeping their own fall or winter events on the schedule. So we shouldn't be too optimistic, just because we see events still, be planned, for October, November, December, that this is really going to happen. And as I said, streaming services could be part of such a plan B. And it's a great idea for this, and possibly even complement live events if and when they return at some point in the future. So finally, launching and participating in the digital event in these days as an organizer or as a sponsor brand, that requires an investment of resources on content production, on tech implementation, but always also in communication. But I strongly believe that represents a long-term gain for all players in our marketing and media and advertising industry and tech industry, and generate new revenues as well as state-of-the-art customer relationship opportunities for all parties involved. So as a resume, I believe it's a big shift, it's a big change for all of us, but these days are perfect to do it right and to do it different. And there are still a lot of great technical solutions in place which you can use. So in other words, be prepared, do it now, do it better now than later. And I really believe that we will face a massively changed landscape of events in the near future. That's it.
Thank you.
So I tried to cover those questions you provided to me.
Yep.
Not sure if you think that was covered well enough, or if I should spend a bit more time on any dedicated topic.
Oh, I would like to ask one question. What is the essential value for physical events in the future? What will become the essential value for physical events?
The value for digital events or offline events?
Offline events.
Offline events. I believe that, I mean, we are still human beings. So therefore, it is our nature that we can deal better than in the past, you know, with distance communication as we do right now. But as a human being, I still need and want to have a personal contact from time to time, whether it's to my team members, whether it's to my clients and so on. This is necessary. So as I said before, I tried to say is that I believe that we all will still go to events, but maybe not traveling, you know, around the world just to attend one of those events, or not doing it every week or every second week as in the past, you know, to be there every time. I think that we will focus more and select more. And it has to meet our expectations quite well, and therefore provide the best benefits. And the benefits are definitely, I want to see my peers. I need to, you know, a personal touch and contact with my peers. And of course, if I would like to spend more time with dedicated, whether it's speakers, whether it's, you know, other brands who are on site, then of course it is still easier and more comfortable to do it on site.
Yeah.
But as I said, so the value of it all won't change, because this is the key motivation as humans, you know, to get in touch to each other. But as I said, we will select far more than in the past. And I would say jumping on an airplane, traveling around the world for just participating in a one-day event and then flying back to somewhere, I think this is very unlikely. You know, if I'm in Tokyo and I would like to join AdTech Tokyo, for example, or any other event, that's a different story, of course. That's just, you know, a 10-minute drive with my cab. So this is going to happen. But do you believe that so many people will go back to Vegas for the CES or for Mobile World Congress in Barcelona? No. So these events will automatically will shrinking. They will shrink in terms of participants and in terms of participating brands as well.
Even this year, I went to Las Vegas for CES. I mentioned to you before,
Yeah.
and most of the decision maker doesn't even go to, you know, actual trade show field. They just have a meeting place, have dinner, meeting people. They don't need to go to those big 10,000, 100,000 people. They're not going to walk around anymore, even before COVID. So like you mentioned, it's already started, and this one kind of moved faster. So
exactly. And if this is your intention, which I completely understand as an executive, you know, you don't want to meet 10,000 people because you just want to meet very dedicated, valuable contact. You don't need to go to these big events anymore, because it's wasting of time. So in other words, coming up with ideas and concepts to host more focusing events with limited number of people, which are highly relevant for my audience.
Yes.
I think this is my target group. This is key. So the goal is no longer growing, you know, in terms of number of attendees and companies and reaching another, you know, milestone based on that. It's more the qualitative goal. It's more to provide the most benefit for my target audience. And this is less is more. That's still true.
Thank you. Do you have any question, Masami?
Yeah, most of the you know, question you mentioned, I also agree. Many of the offline event organizers still treat online as offline. So,
Yeah.
you know, like, okay, we're going to do October 10th, 8 hours offline, but just in case that doesn't work, we do the exact same day, but that's not online anymore. Like you mentioned, we should do more streaming, we should do more, you know, doing more online focus. A conference should be the future of the conference, I believe.
I agree. I mean, also, you know, with your event activities here, you know, interaction is really important, real-time interaction. And you should, you know, speakers like me and others should commit to organizers like you to spend more time also after such a speech, you know, to be able to connect with your audience. And also not just today, but also tomorrow, next week, next month. And this is the beauty with our technology. You're still connected. You know, I'm not like I'm on stage and I'm gone. So I'm no longer.
I know. So I never get to see you. I never get to talk to you if you're
exactly. But here I'm still here. I'm still connected, and everybody can reach out to me also in the future. Then I think that's quite a huge difference. And to make this and to offer these services in a comfortable way, that makes a huge difference to offline events. And as you said, my observation is also that most of the offline events just extend their content online, which is not good at all. It's boring sometimes.
Yes.
It's not relevant, at least. So you need, as I said before, you need a different content strategy. I also believe that maybe a learning for us or for myself as well in the future, it needs shorter segments.
Yeah, shorter is better.
Maybe more regularly, you know. I theoretically, I could come back every month or every second month, you know, with a dedicated topic and talk about this or discuss this with your audience instead of putting everything which I have in mind, you know, into one speech. I think these kinds of actions and changes needs to happen.
I agree.
That's good.
Yeah, because that's why we have this, you know, online. It's not offline. It doesn't cost too much too once you develop. You know, those trade shows spend millions and then, you know, one day and then nothing stay and everything gone. But this one, you know, if somebody want to watch our, you know, your keynote next month, they can do that. If they, you know, this is great.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thanks for your time. And
thank you so much. And then, you know, like everybody will love your keynote.
I do hope that's some valuable insights for your audience.
Yes.
And I'm curious to hear some feedback.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Let's stay in touch.
Stay in touch.
Yes,
Thank you.